Good afternoon, good evening. It's Thursday, April 7th, 2022, 6 p.m. This meeting is being conducted in the Carabell City Hall chambers. It's the regular meeting of the Carabell City Commission. I'm glad to see everyone here. We'll open with a prayer by Commissioner Allen, and then I will lead with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Father and God in heaven, we're grateful that we have this opportunity to come together in this assembly to discuss those things that will be pertinent to the welfare of our citizens and for the future of our lovely town. We ask you to be with us in our judgment, that we might be fair and open and be willing to listen to each one's position before we make strong decisions. Be with those of our number two in our city that are sick and afflicted, and we ask you to bring them back to health as soon as possible. We ask this in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good evening and welcome. I'm glad to see you all here, everyone here. I see we've got a special guest here I haven't seen in a long time, and I may be a little befuddled because she's a pro at it, and I'm glad to see her here. So thank you everyone for silencing your phones, and I usually say, and I will say, anyone wishing to speak during the public comment section or during the discussion portion of the agenda will need to complete a speaker card, and we have a maximum of 3 minutes at the when you speak, and one-time visit to the podium for agenda items. Okay, so we'll move right on to the consent agenda. It's for the March 3rd, 2022 regular commission meeting and the attorney's invoices. Do we want to entertain a motion for that? Did everyone get a chance to review those minutes and invoices?
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have that motion by Commissioner Mathis. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Oh.
I think I heard
We all second.
Commissioner Brown among all of them. Is there any further discussion?
Just one quick question, not to be critical when looking over, Dan, your invoice?
Yes.
Nothing wrong with it, other than just the curiosity, and from my information, looked like one of those items on there may have been more suited for the CRA billing. I can't remember exactly what item it was.
I'll check it.
Preparing a plan or something for the CRA.
Got it. I'll check it.
But anyway, it's not critical, just a thought.
No, what I do typically is submit two separate bills, one for the
That's
CRA,
correct. I
one
looked
for
at both
city.
of those.
And yeah, I should not be commingling them. So.
Thank you, Mayor.
Perfect.
All right, any further discussion? Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and that motion carries, and that was by Commissioner Mathis, a second by Commissioner Brown. So then we'll move on to our commissioner reports. Commissioner Brown?
I just wanted to remind everyone of the Carabell Riverfront Festival on Saturday, April 23rd from 10 to 6 downtown on Marine Street. I believe the chamber is supposed to come tonight to talk a little bit about it, but they still have vendor spots and sponsor spots available, so if you're interested, just contact Lori at the chamber.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Allen
I have nothing at this time.
and Commissioner Mathis?
I have nothing.
Okay, Commissioner Millender?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. I have a brief report this evening. For a change, it's brief. I just wanted to say that the city was invoiced by the county for its half of the Ryan Drive culvert repair, all the costs for that, and a check in the amount of $58,385 was cut and signed and delivered to the county the week of March the 28th. And this project for this City of Carabell portion was funded in total by our log account. And then on Monday, we signed a check, Commissioner Brown and I did, for $7,000 to Franklin County for payment for animal control services in the City of Carabell. Then using Miranda's year-to-date report, I put together one of my expense to budget reports for the city's CARES Act grant allocations. We haven't had a report on that since August, I believe. But this time, there's approximately $91,118 remaining in that account, but there's some outstanding items that are still that were allocated. We have $50,000 to pay off our CRA debt. That's still outstanding. $16,230 remaining to go towards the cemetery development of that new land. And then $5,000 for City Hall landscaping. And then we have $15,378 remaining in contingency. So after the outstanding budget items have been paid, there will be $4,510 approximately, because we don't know what the landscaping is going to cost, remaining in the unallocated, plus the $15,378 in contingency. So when all of that is finished paying, we'll come back together and see what we want to do with the remaining. If anything, just wanted to give you an update on that, and that's all I have. I just say thank you, and I want to wish everyone a happy Easter next week. And then we'll move on to the city attorney's report.
All right, I just have one item for consideration, and it is that I was called by the county attorney regarding, the county administrator had a conversation with Carl Whaley, our chief on the fire department, relative to that our fire department had responded to a call that the Lanark Fire Department failed to, and they're having some trouble and turmoil there in the Lanark Volunteer Fire Department. And there was talk between the chief and the county administrator about helping them with short term to try and cover calls over in Lanark. And I talked to Mr. Schuler about it and said that I would brief the commission on it, and the suggestion being that, and the Chief Whaley thought this was doable, is that for a short period of time here, while they're getting reconstituted and getting it up and running again, that we would assist them with that. We would work out an agreement, whether it be kind of a interlocal agreement or a mutual aid agreement, which would compensate the city for calls made out to that area. And I would bring that back to you all, work with Mr. Schuler to get that agreement in place or get it drafted, and then bring it to you all for approval. So any questions, but really the agreement will be the time to kind of go through the details.
Do we have any questions or comments regarding that?
Yes, ma'am. Just to share some info. Dan, I listened to the meeting and listened to that 2-hour discussion. And I agree with what Mr. Barone had stated transpired between him and our chief of the fire department. But I called and I spoke with one of the commissioners. I called two, and I've only been able to speak with one. And it might help that in 86 or 87, there was an organization created in Franklin County that I was a part of that helped create, called the Franklin County United Firefighters Association. And for years, that was organized and put together. And that organization was membership of all 7 fire departments in Franklin County. And at that time, there were maps and boundaries established and signed off on for all the volunteer fire departments. Carabell had a primary, Lanark had a primary, Alligator Point, so forth and so on. And secondary, they would naturally back up anywhere in the county. So there were agreements signed at that time that identified the boundaries and the backups at that time. And I'm wondering if those documents can be found. I don't even know if the Firefighters Association is still in existence. I shared who the president of those associations were during my tenure and my time, and also spoke with Chief Whaley about it. And he was a part of it. He remembers it. And he also said that he thought that he doesn't know for a fact that
George Pruitt, which is East Point's fire chief, was the last president of the association. Bottom line is, if they can find those records, we don't have to reinvent the wheel on the agreements. They're already in existence. And those were created back in, like I said, in somewhere in 86, 87. And I, as a member of the city council, I don't have a problem with our fire department backing up anyone in the county when needed. I don't think, from my standpoint, that I'm willing to take on our city fire department, take on Lanark as a primary responsibility, but as a backup. And I understand what happened in Lanark is there was a call for the fire department out there, and they never got a response. And in return, they called Carabell or Alligator Point, depending on which end of Lanark's district it's in. If it's out toward summer camp, they call Alligator Point. If it's closer within the village, then they're going to call Carabell. So bottom line, again, I'm just speaking for myself as a member of the board. I don't have a problem with our fire department backing up Lanark if they don't get a response from Lanark. And again, we shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel if those agreements are already in place and they're still in effect. If those can be found, again, that was created back in the 80s. And again, I was a part of that working through state of Florida. But who is handling those, I don't know at this date. But that would be worth checking into to find out. And I haven't had a chance to call Attorney Schuler and share this information with him. But anyway, that's just information. If they could check into it, may save some effort. But again, I'm just expressing my part as a member of this commission and how I feel our fire department should respond. And that is, if the call comes and we have to respond, we have to respond. That's the way I feel. Thank you.
I agree with that.
All right, thank you. That's good information. I appreciate that. Okay, so, and of course, you know, I did watch the meeting that live, and I heard the discussion, then I went back and watched it again the next day, just to make sure I'm hearing what I thought I heard. And I talked with Chief Whaley. We had a good, long discussion. And he says, you know, we have some, I know a lot of people, first of all, I know a lot of people and have a good many friends in the Lanark and St. James Bay area. And of course, they want the city of Carabell volunteer fire department to take over that fire district, and some of them are probably watching now. And I will say that Chief Whaley, you know, reported that there are several underlying issues regarding the St. James Lanark Volunteer Fire Department that would lower our MSBU rating for the Carabell Volunteer Fire Department. And so, you know, I'm in agreement with Commissioner Millender that we don't want to take on that district permanently or as a primary responsibility. You know, we want to allow the county to do whatever they need to do to get that board of directors reinstated or whatever they have to do to hold a special election or get some new volunteers out there. But Chief Whaley, he says that the Carabell Volunteer Fire Department has offered to provide mutual aid until they can get a new board of directors or whatever that the county is trying to do. And I know that the county wants to get something done for those residents and property owners out there. We want to make sure, though, that first of all, that fire department, Carl explained to me, is that district, it's the smallest district in Franklin County. And it goes from Lake Morality Road, just west of Lanark, east of Carabell here, north to Highway 67, east to the 10-mile Y, and then north up to 319 at the county line, Sopchoppy River. That's the smallest district, fire district in Franklin County. But they will go ahead and do what they can to provide mutual aid as long as they can. But the Chief Whaley said that they don't want to overextend themselves, that they would have to, in the event of a dual emergency, that they'd have to set priorities, and they may have to call in Alligator Point to come in and assist if there was some incident there and they were working an incident here in this area. He has to set priorities, and they are the Carabell Volunteer Fire Department. And Carabell's fire district is the largest district in Franklin County, and that goes from Morality Road back here west, all the way to Yent Bayou, just this side of Yent Bayou, and then from the bay all the way to the county line north, and that's the largest district. So that also would, you know, hold us back from wanting to take on more responsibility. So, and I did talk with the chief about that there was some discussion on the county side about offering some MSBU funds, and you and I discussed that, and those, if you know, if that happens, if that's in the agreement, a percentage of that would have to be transferred from their MSBU to the Carabell Volunteer Fire Department MSBU for the time that this agreement is in effect. So, but I and Chief Whaley want the folks, when this begins to happen, well, it's happening right now. If something happened out there, we would have to, our fire department would have to provide mutual aid. But we want them to understand that our firefighters are all volunteers and they're dedicated, but they will be traveling from their homes or work that are in this area in their own personal vehicle to fight a fire. And they'll be traveling an extraordinary distance. For instance, Chief Whaley's home is in west of Carabell, and for him to get to the St. James Bay subdivision, he'll have to go 11 miles just to get there before he can start fighting the fire. They got to pick up their fire trucks and equipment on the way. So they will do their very best because they don't want to see any loss of life or property anywhere in Franklin County. So the chief also, he requested for the agreement to have some type of a hold harmless clause in it, because to justify their response time will be delayed because they're coming from so far. You know, we want to, you know, don't want to have the volunteers to be held liable in any way because they appear to show up late, but they're traveling a long distance. So then I request, and I told the chief that I was going to request this, and he agrees. He would like to have the opportunity to review and provide input on the draft mutual aid agreement, if that's okay with the commission and Mr. Hartman. Okay, all right. So, do we have any other comment on that?
There's a lot to be said about on that subject that I'm aware of from experience, but it's not for this particular venue, because there's a lot to be said about the ISO. They enter into it as well. But the mutual aid agreement we can fulfill. Mutual aid agreement meaning, because the way I understand it, there's not been any resignations of the fire department in Lanark Village. They just haven't responded to that call. So I'm assuming there's still a chance that they may receive the initial call, and if there's no response from them, then our fire department will be called next in line, depending on what part of Lanark's responsibility area it's in, because if it's in the summer camp region, Alligator Point may be called prior to Carabell. That's the way it, because again, you know, there's a lot that enters into it when the ISO gets into it as well. Insurance Services of America. Those people could, in that village, and I probably shouldn't say it publicly, it could be detrimental to them. Yeah. But thank you. Yeah. And Dan, if you'd like to talk later, be glad to do that.
Yeah, what I'll do is we'll certainly talk, and that'll help me draft the agreement. If we need to draft one, I understand there may be something out there existing. We'll kind of run that to ground, but I sort of feel like we're on the path to drafting a short, simple thing, just that'll cover us for the number of months here. But I'll I'll certainly send it to both of you to get comments and ideas.
But Mayor, in the interim, I think it may be appropriate for us to give our support to the chief. And I'll make a motion that we agree to our fire department through Chief Whaley, fulfilling this short-term commitment as a backup to Lanark Village until further notice.
I'll second.
Okay, we have that motion by Commissioner Millender to fulfill the short-term commitment to help cover the St. James Lanark Volunteer Fire Department, and that's second by Commissioner Allen. Is there any other discussion? I like the term short-term, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that motion carries. All right, thank you. All right. Anything else, Mr. Hartman?
Nothing else.
And we've heard nothing from the school board?
No, we still don't have,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Let us know if there's anything any of us can do.
I
If
will.
we need to reach out to someone.
On the cemetery?
Mhm.
I think she's gonna bring that up. We'll
Well,
talk
not with
about
the
it.
school board, but
Yeah, okay.
Okay. All right, then, we'll move on to the city administrator report.
okay, you should have all got your department reports. I tried to send them out as I received them this month, so you had them a little earlier. I know I had one that came in late, so you just got it today. And we are moving forward. In our CARES Act allocations, we budgeted some money to do some landscaping here at City Hall, and we're moving forward with that, and that should start next week or the week after. He's should be coming anytime, so if you see some work going on, that's what that is. It's the landscaping that was budgeted out of the CARES Act funding. You may notice an ad in the paper this week for disposition of property. It's for the old City Hall building. It is required, it's in the CRA district, and it's required by law that we advertise for disposition of property. It's already under contract, but we have to go through the process that's required by law. So if you see that and you're asking, well, we have this under contract, why is it in the paper? That's why it's in the paper.
Yeah, I've had 2 calls on that.
I figured it would. When that comes up, Dan will probably address it, but we are in a binding contract. So even though it's advertised for you to put in a proposal, we are in a binding contract that we're held to. So. Like Miss Sabrina said, there's somebody was supposed to be here from the chamber, but they are asking for road closures for the Riverfront Festival for April the 23rd, and that's Marine Street, Avenue B, and Avenue C. I don't think, we do it every year. I don't think we really need to make a motion, just to let you guys know that we'll be closing the road for the Riverfront Festival. The Cleanup Carabell Workshop on March 22nd, request has been withdrawn by Mr. Mark Melcher. They're gonna defer to a twice-a-year waterfront partnership cleanup instead, so we're no longer looking at the Cleanup Carabell. The SPCH mural is complete. The mayor and I was out today with Mr. Hayes, and we had some issues, and they came back, and he's made a lot of progress. It looks much better, so they're gonna be here on Monday to do the clear coat on the wall, and we'll make final payment. As Commissioner Mellender said, the cemetery. On the new property on the cemetery, we need to start thinking about updating our fees or our rates for the cemetery plots. I know we've had the same fees for about 20 years or longer, and Commissioner Mellender's reached out to several other communities around us, and it looks like, we're probably low on what we're charging. And I'm not sure, I know we don't have the transfer agreement, but we do need to start thinking about getting this project started and clearing it, and how we're gonna come up, lay it out and everything, because we are getting really low. And I know we don't have a signed agreement, so I don't know how far we can go with that now. But it's just a thought to keep in the back of your minds that we need to think about that. Any questions?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment, Mayor.
Mm-hmm.
I for one think we need to press on, move forward, and I know that, Dan, you step in here too, on where we're at, because actually the Streets and Roads crew, at my request through the city administrator, we did a day's worth of cleanup out there on some of that, started cleaning up on some of the property yesterday, which I know the school board is not gonna care because it needs cleaning up. But anyway, looks great too, and I appreciate what they did. There's still a lot to be done. We had a discussion. I was out there with Dustin and his crew yesterday, and we discussed a lot more things to be done and clean up. But I feel like with the concern, speaking to Courtney and Miranda, we're low enough on our available plots in the current cemetery. We need to move forward and start moving forward pretty quick with having it laid out, an engineer lay it out. Russell, you listening?
Sure.
Anyway, we need to start moving on it because we're really low. And Dan, I don't know where we're at with
Yeah, I can
your
just,
part.
I can update everyone, and certainly I know there's a lot of other, call it personal relationships with folks on the school board or anything else, so certainly you're not gonna be stepping on any toes reaching out to those folks. Is the documentation is finalized, that I worked through that with the board attorney, and then I was in contact with Ms. Ward there in the, I believe the chairman's office, and there's been nothing negative about it up to this point, meaning we're just talking about, and have been for a couple months, getting it on the agenda and getting it approved. But it has not happened yet, to my knowledge, as far as it being on the agenda and approved. I've followed up and I'll continue to do so. Again, have had no negative feedback. I mean, other than, and this isn't negative, it's just a number of different individuals have wanted to look things over, and they have every right to do so and should, and they're doing that. So it's just, we've had delay in getting it on the agenda, getting it approved. But again, I've had no feedback that was negative, or as far as them backing off of what they had told us they would do.
Yeah.
So,
Mayor, if I can?
Yes.
Yeah, the way I understand it, the mayor actually attended the meeting where the board actually verbally approved the transaction. So what we're looking at, the board approving, is the official document. Is that correct?
correct. What we have is what we call a transfer agreement and a deed. Both of them track the deeds and transfer agreements that we dealt with on Old City Hall.
Right.
So and I've gone through that with their attorney 45 days or more, 60 days, more than that ago. Okay. So those are all where they need to be.
And if I can finish my comments, I feel like that we should maybe at this point kind of talk with Russell to put him on alert to go ahead and start some layout. We've paid for a survey to start laying out the cemetery and have some discussions on that, have some discussions on if we want to increase the cost for our maintenance and what we do. I feel like we need to get started on it. That's just my opinion.
Well, I brought it up many times, the things that you've just discussed here. I keep it on my notes every month under Russell's report, that as soon as the deed is recorded, we need to get rocking and rolling. We need to move forward with scheduling a geotechnical investigation. That's got to be done first to make sure, to know where we can put folks.
Correct.
And then I've said time and time again, after that, we need to schedule a kickoff workshop for a master plan, architectural landscape architect to come and bring us a plan, maybe several plans or something that we can start working with and get this thing rolling. But I don't know if we can move forward without holding the deed. You know, how much do we want to invest? And I will say, we set aside 20 for the development of the cemetery, and we spent about 3 out of it. But we've got 5 in the cemetery reserve, 5,000 on our regular general fund budget, and 20 was set aside in the CARES Act, but we have the contingency that I just mentioned that can be put, we've got sufficient funds that we can start moving forward on this.
Well, can we, at this time, Dan, I feel like, Mayor, go ahead and ask Russell to start advanced planning, not on the ground boots work, but start planning your schedule and processing ahead and get prepared for we can move forward. When Dan's part and the school board's attorney is completed.
Okay, here's a suggestion. We can go ahead and begin to develop the scope of work and contact the geotechnical engineer to develop his scope of work and the landscape architecture. We can get that, and there's no cost to the city for preparation of that, but that would queue up the activities that we would perform at the time that the city does make the purchase. That way we're ready.
That would be time saver for us.
And contact
Yeah.
a landscape architect
Yes.
who can go ahead and maybe take a look at the survey. But we can't really lay any plots out until we know where it's dry enough
Right.
to do that.
Right.
Yeah, it's good and open now. You can take a look at most of it, not all the wooded area, but most of the existing ball field is all open.
Right. I do think that's something that we could begin now, and the city would not be at risk for that.
Okay. Does that sound okay to you, Mr. Hartman?
Absolutely, that's a
All
good
right.
idea.
Okay.
Do you need a motion to that effect?
I don't think we need a motion.
Okay.
Everybody knows we need more
Yes,
cemetery land,
absolutely.
so.
I think everyone's
Okay,
in agreement,
yeah.
but yeah.
All right. Is there anything else then
Yes.
under Ms. Courtney?
I was just going to report that Russell and Charlie and the mayor and I met with a representative from summer camp. And they've sold a few lots out there, and they're ready to start negotiations on the city taking or providing water and sewer. And that will probably come before you as a presentation next month in May. We may need to have some special meetings. Not right now, we're not planning on it, but just keep that in the back of your head that we may need to have some meetings on that.
Summer camp,
Summer camp,
back on the agenda.
back on the agenda again. And then last but not least, did you all get the chance to look at the propeller that's out front? Mr. Chester was gonna be here tonight, but he's not here. He's not finished with that propeller. Once he finishes it, it'll be real shiny and brass, and then once it sits outside, it'll get a patina to it. But I think the question is, you see the one prop that's bent real bad, whether we want to straighten that out or leave it like it is. I think to straighten it out, it's going to take a lot of work, and he may want to get paid for that. But if we leave it like it is, then it won't cost us anything. And just your
Is he
thoughts.
wanting to know that answer now?
No,
before-
he didn't ask that. I
Okay.
thought he would be here, but he didn't ask that.
Okay.
But he wanted everybody to get a chance to see it, and he's got some background history on it, and he was going to share some of that with us. But
Yes, sir?
Mayor, he mentioned to me out front as I was leaving to come inside, Chester did, and Courtney, we were all looking at it, and he mentioned to me that he was going to ask to be placed on next month's agenda and come in and give us a report and have some discussion about what to do and present some ideas. He said he had a presentation to do. So I thought that was great. Yeah.
Okay, I get, he just wanted us to see it right now so we would understand what he was talking about. Is the way he pointed out some numbers on it that were like identifying type numbers, and it thinks it came from the Queen of Queens, and then maybe it was put on the Miss Carabell. For those that don't know, we oversaw, Courtney did, removal of 2 sunken trawlers right there at the old Tom Crum Ice House. And then when FWC funded that grant to do that, and when that was, the Marine Salvage Company was making their last sweep to make sure they got everything, well, guess what they pulled up? That propeller. And so that's what, we believe, the historians, the old timers believe it came from either the Queen of Queens and then the Miss Carabell. So we decided to keep it and not let them take that to salvage it, and we're gonna put it somewhere, which we'll decide, or get some community input and decide where to display it. Once Chester's doing that as a volunteer, he's refurbishing that. Did you see that, Miss Cheryl? Did you see that? Very good. All right. Is there anything else?
No.
Okay, yes.
Mayor, can I back up just one minute to share with the commission, with the board members on the cemetery? I did reach out to other areas in comparison to get an idea about their fees for plots. And as Courtney stated, we are low compared to others. East Point as an example. They even told me, I had a long discussion, that is not owned by the county. It's owned by a citizens group, nonprofit in East Point. And the county does do the maintenance on it. Okay. They are currently negotiating increasing their fees. Their fees are right along kind of with ours, just a little bit higher. But they're currently discussing in their group or organization going up on their fees. And Apalachicola is quite a bit higher than us on their city-owned cemeteries. But anyway, just to give you food for thought as an example, I think, Courtney, correct me if I'm wrong, you and Keisha, I think our singles are 200.
Yes, doubles are 300.
Yeah, and Apalachicolas is 300 at the current time. And East Point's is right there close, a little bit lower, no, a little bit higher, but they're going up on theirs. So I give y'all food for thought on our future discussions, because Courtney had mentioned it, we need to consider increases to help recoup some of the cost of maintenance and so forth on our cemeteries. That's all I had. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Okay, then, anything else now? Okay, then we'll move on to the city clerk.
I'm going to announce a couple meetings. Well, first we got the April the 15th, City Hall will be closed for Good Friday. April 19th is our regular CRA meeting at 1:30. April 21st at 2 p.m. is our P&Z meeting. I did get a couple emails this week that I needed to bring before. One, the fireworks obviously have went up again.
No.
So I know we budgeted a little bit more to compare for last year, but he said in order to do the show we had, it would be $15,000 comparable to last year. Now he could range the shells down and do a shorter amount of time to work within our budget, but if we wanted something comparable to our Fourth of July show, then we're looking at $15,000.
And that's for a show not on the 4th?
That's right.
I actually had that on my list here to talk to you about. And I have the Saturday, July the 2nd. What did you talk with him?
I did not give him a date.
And that would be a great day. Appalachia does theirs on July the 3rd, which is a Sunday, and St. George on July the 4th, which is a Monday. So that'd give us 3 days in the Franklin County with fireworks. But we have $11,250 budgeted. When does he need an answer?
Tomorrow.
Whoa. For the 4th of July, yes.
Very good answer.
Oh.
I don't know, $15,000.
So that's
Does the
That's
public have any input on this one? $15,000 fireworks.
That's an additional $3,700 and some odd dollars.
He,
How much,
well,
did he give you an idea how much it would be reduced if we stayed within our budget?
he can, I mean, we can give him an amount and he can,
Right, work
Um,
in it, yeah.
but he'd come back and just said, that the freight charges went from about $3,000 to $30,000. And, so that he would have to, but he says we can cut down on the amount of cakes and keep the same price and length of show, but it will not be as good of show. So basically, you have 3s, 4s, 5s, and 6s, and they go higher and more boom and more color, and so,
There'll be more singles
yeah,
instead of the
with our
multiples.
budget, we'd probably be back, we'd be something comparable to the Holiday on the Harbor.
What's the holiday on the harbor gonna be? You know, we're the only agency or city in Franklin County that has 2 fireworks shows a year.
It's 'cause we're awesome.
I mean, you all wanna go $12,000?
I'm a penny pincher.
Well, I am too. I don't, I mean, I don't,
My thoughts on it, and just my thoughts, and I'm always the one to step out in it. I'll step out in it. I would love to have a spectacular, more than we've ever had. But being not just conservative, but trying to think reasonable, utilizing the taxpayers' money, I would suggest that we stay in budget and reduce the amount of the show. Especially with what the mayor just said, we do 2 shows a year.
we do two shows a
Yeah.
year.
That's a lot of,
And
that's a
who
lot of
knows
the,
then what the CRA is gonna cost, then if it's gone up like that.
but that's just my opinion. We have 4 others here to speak on it, and the public, if someone
I
would
mean,
love to
he
speak.
has to know tomorrow amount.
I don't know that he has to have amount, but we're not gonna have time to meet and vote again. I mean, if we wanna keep it the same amount, there's no need for a vote because it's already budgeted.
But if someone were to donate, could we change it later?
I'm sure if we could come up with additional money, and he's got it scheduled anyway, but he does have to order these things.
I would just say, let's just stay within budget. I mean, it you know, it's just,
Slowly creeping up.
yeah. I mean, it was $5,000 2 years ago,
Yes.
Yeah.
so, and we know everything's gone up in price, every
yeah.
single thing. So, I mean, this might be some kind of a luxury for everyone, and we don't know if, now, are these other folks going to, now, Appalach, they get donations, they're, it's fully donated. That does not come out of their, general fund or any tax dollars over there. This is, you know, a lot of tax dollars. You can buy a lot of food pantry food with this, $12,000. You can do a lot with that. So, y'all, let's just stay within budget. How about that for now? Okay?
And the second sound good for everybody? Because that, we kind of have been traditionally the second, and then letting the third be
I
Appalachian.
think that's the best day, 'cause it's Saturday.
Yeah,
Okay.
Saturday, that's a good day.
Okay.
All right.
One other thing is, Franklin County Parks and Recs has reached out to us, Apalachicola. The city of Appalach has, solicited them for the cleaning of their restrooms. They wanted to know if we would be in agreement to paying half the salary of an employee and supplying all cleaning products for them to do our restroom cleanings.
The cities or the county?
The cities. Like.
Now, say that again.
All of our parks, the city of Apalachicola, we use inmate labor, and then we have someone on the weekends. And the city has reached out to the Franklin County, for them to provide services to cleaning their restrooms to their parks. and they're wanting to basically hire a full-time employee and us half the cost of that employee and supply all the cleaning products.
All right,
I
now this
believe
was,
it's probably the same proposal they gave to the TDC,
Yeah.
but the TDC wouldn't fund it, so now they're going to both the cities. and
that,
cities.
that was brought to the TDC, and it actually wasn't even allowed to come up to the TDC board.
Well,
It was
before, I
denied
wanted just to get an
before.
idea before
And,
we, you know.
But my question to the TDC executive director, when that was being, pending coming on the agenda, was how is one person going to cover all of the restrooms on the east side? How is one person going to cover restrooms in Carabell and Apalachicola on the same day?
Well, they haven't included a proposal. He's just saying nothing's been fully developed. If you would like to be included in this process, let me know.
Well, first of all, I think we've got a dependable janitorial service on the weekend. How do you feel
Yes,
about
we
that,
do.
Ms. Courtney?
We do.
Now, when the TDC was in the mix to possibly fund it, it was something that we realized, we thought maybe, that would save our streets and roads. It's already budgeted for our streets and roads, but it would save them some valuable time.
Yes.
I don't know what to say. I don't know how they can do a good job spread out through the county, and how many restrooms, and this was something that Courtney and Dustin and I were gonna go over there in Appalachia see, how many restrooms are they cleaning, or square footage, or toilets compared to what we have here? If we're halving the price, is it, we need to know more.
And you got to take into consideration that free labor that we're using for that
Yeah.
same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, the free labor we use, and you're right. I mean, but we've had a lot of difficulty getting that free labor for a while now. But anyway, I have a lot of questions on it, Keisha. When you say half, they want us, well,
Yeah,
I'd be.
Let me just read the letter here because
But-
it's really short and sweet, and it just says the City of Appalachia has presented a proposal to the Franklin County Parks and Recreation Department to service all of the City of Apalachicola's restroom. The City of Apalachicola is also in agreement with paying half the salary for that employee and supplying all cleaning products. We would like to know if you would be interested in this proposal for the City of Carabell. So that's the question. All the details in the contract have not been fully developed. However, if you would like to be included in this process, please let me know. So that's the extent of what I have.
Now, my opinion is I'd be interested in hearing what the process is.
And the amount.
But first of all, I have a question about, right off the bat, is they're asking for half of a employee's salary? Why should Apalachicola and Carabell pay half the salary, and it's a county employee that's taking care of all the restrooms throughout the county? So I would be interested in the process and see where we come up to, hearing what's going on.
Right,
but
and that's, I don't
I
know if they
wouldn't
want
wanna-
us to do half of a half and they pay the other half,
Exactly,
but.
exactly.
So I guess, I mean,
Yeah.
if you want me to respond and say, feel free to send us the proposal.
A copy of their proposal, and we'll take a look at it.
But I
Yeah, I'd
just
be
wanted to bring
interested
that up.
in staff staying in touch with what's going on and send us a copy of the proposal, and let's see. No commitment, but just see what they have.
Yeah, we definitely need more information.
Yeah. That's me.
And that's all I have.
Okay. Do we have any further questions for Ms. Keisha? All right. We'll move on to Anovia. Mr. Russell.
All right, thank you. On our DOT Small Communities grant project known as The Hill, the contractor has been issued the notice to proceed for the 9th Street paving improvements. They should be doing the stakeout this week, and then they'll mobilize equipment and begin construction on that next week, the following week. And that grant has been extended to June 30th, 2022, and the contractor says that they can complete the work in that time frame. On our next scope application, Baywood, that has been submitted and is under review by DOT at this time. on our Lighthouse water and sewer project. Construction is underway. Current work is along US 98. Sewer has been, the force main has been constructed along Lighthouse Road, a portion of Lighthouse Road. DEP and the Water Management District have amended those grant agreements, and the contractor has been authorized to continue with construction for the remainder of Phase 2 and Phase 1. So that's the entire project. The contractor's been authorized. I can tell you that there is some supply issues. For example, valves have not been delivered to the contractor yet. So what they're doing is constructing the force main in the ground and marking where those valves will be located. And when those come in, they'll come back and install those. Okay, on our Marine Street CDBG project, the Army Corps of Engineers determined that a permit is not required, and we're continuing to coordinate with Fox Enterprises to complete the DEO review so that we can issue that project for construction.
Thank you. I didn't think that they would be, but thank you.
Right, right. Okay, and that's all I had on my report. I was going to mention the summer camp, but I think Courtney covered that. So that's all I had on my report.
Okay, and you want a notice to proceed for the contractor to begin on the remaining portion of the lighthouse. Do we need a vote for Ms. Courtney to sign that notice to proceed?
I think we already did.
Oh, did we? Oh, you
Think
signed
she-
it
I
already?
signed it.
Yes, she
Okay.
can do it.
All right, okay. Let me see, I just wanted to mention to everyone, so you're preparing application to the FDOT SCOP grant for Baywood.
Yes.
Okay. Remind you all that we had a legislative budget request for that project, 1.5 million something, and of course that was denied. But Tamara's telling me that some historical projects were all throughout Franklin County got some funding, so that's a good thing. Now, we have a long list of roadway repairs that we're still holding on outstanding quotes or estimates, and I just threw one in since Courtney, I'm over there at Fisherman's Wife quite a bit now looking at the wall mural, and I threw another one in there to ask him to see if he can get a quote for some open graded asphalt that would be pervious for the right-of-way parking in front of Fisherman's Wife. And of course, that would be a CRA, but I've just thrown that in there in the mix. That would give him 9. Some of those are already approved, and some are just proposed. If you'll come back with a quote, we can.
Yes,
talk
and
about it.
I did speak with him today about that. He was putting those together, so I expect we'll have those soon. We'll
those-
review it and work back through Courtney on those.
The only one, that's the only one that's going to be funded through this board, a log account, has already been approved, and that's the Ryan Drive
Okay.
up in the north. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anything else? Do y'all have anything else for?
I just wanted to add too, because I know the Family Dollar project's Russell has the new review. So if he's completed that, then that will be on the P&Z meeting on April 21st at 2:00. So he should have his review done of that.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Let me find my, okay. Notice to proceed. All right, we move to the advisory board reports. We have the Carabell Waterfront Partnership, and we got Ms. Tamara's report. Did you all get a chance to just take a quick review of that? The Justice Building received a $41,000 grant, and then for the elevator, and then they've got $13,500 for the match. And they can always reach out to the TDC for additional funding for their grant funding for infrastructure improvements on museums. Then the Crooked River Lighthouse, she's reporting for them. They received an $84,000 grant to repair and paint the lighthouse tower, and they also should and could reach out to the TDC for additional funding, everything is increasing in price. And she talks about Andrew Warber from the Bureau of Historic Preservation has been down and toured around the proposed historic areas in Carabell, and that he will meet with the commission prior to conducting any public meetings in the city. So, okay. All right. Who did he come and visit with when he was down here? Who showed him around the historic districts?
Myself, Michael Pace, and Sherry Weston.
Uh-huh.
And it was he and another colleague of his named Emily,
Mm-hmm.
a young person. Mr. Warbur's been interested in Carabell for many years,
Mm-hmm.
and the historical nature of it, so he's very enthusiastic about it.
Okay, very good. Do y'all have questions or comments to Ms. Tamara? Okay, and then we have the Carabell Aviation Advisory Board. You have that report in front of you. By the way, all these reports are available via public records request. Do y'all have any questions? Mr. Sullivan is here, the chair of the Aviation Advisory Board.
No, but just, the only thing I have is I read through it. Looked like that there was a good catch on that funding.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever caught that, if Tim caught it or the board caught it, that was a good catch. Good job.
It was Mr. Sullivan, and, but just, as they review their budgets monthly, their expense to budget, they look at that in detail, because they have a small budget, every penny counts. But it was about 6 weeks. He had to be very persistent, almost on a daily basis, contacting the engineer to follow up with the DOT, where they had removed $235,322 from their JSIP posting online on the funding that we were to receive here coming in July to complete the taxiway project. All right, and we thank you for that persistence. And then we have the HR committee. We'll defer that to our item number 2 on this agenda, if that's okay. Okay, we have a public hearing, and Mr. Hartman, you're up for Proclamation 01-2022.
Great. So Proclamation 01-2022, National Volunteer Week, April 17th through 23rd, 2022. Whereas the entire community can inspire, equip, and mobilize people to take action that changes the world. And whereas individuals and communities are at the center of social change, discovering their power to make a difference. And whereas during the week of April 17th through 23rd, 2022, all over the nation, volunteers will be recognized for their commitment to service. And whereas the giving of oneself in service to another empowers the giver and the recipient. Whereas our county's volunteer force of country's volunteer force of 63 million is a great treasure. And whereas volunteers are vital to our future as a caring and productive community, and whereas a volunteer saves on a national average $28.54 an hour for the organization it volunteers for, whereas a volunteer gives of themselves for no other reason but to make our community better. Now therefore we, the Carabell City Commission, do hereby proclaim April 17th through 23rd, 2022 as National Volunteer Week in Carabell, and also urge our fellow citizens to volunteer in Carabell and Franklin County. Also, we urge others to recognize those who serve by tirelessly sharing their time and talent with those in need.
All right, then. Do we want to entertain a motion to proclaim April the 17th through the 23rd as National Volunteer Week and recognize our volunteers?
I'll make a motion to approve Proclamation 01-2022.
I'll second.
All right, we have that motion regarding National Volunteer Week proclamation by Commissioner Millender to proclaim that, and second by Commissioner Brown. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Any
opposed? Okay, and that motion carries. Very good, thank you.
With one comment, Mayor.
Okay.
I would really personally, and I think this entire board does, but I speak for myself, and think thank you extremely to the volunteers that's in the city of Carabell and the surrounding area that put in the time and effort that they do for the benefit and the well-being of the city of Carabell. And I'm looking straight at a lady back here that puts in a tremendous amount of time, and I've said it before, I admire her for what she does and thank her tremendously. And that also includes our volunteer firemen that get very little recognition. They're all, the mayor's mentioned it earlier, they're all volunteers. And but the volunteer work that's done in the city of Carabell, looking at Tim back here with the airport and the other boards, the P&Z, we have a tremendous asset from the volunteers within our community. And again, I want to thank you, and my hat's off to you. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. And you know, volunteers even polish up old propellers.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I could go on and on.
I know it. Okay. All right, so we have no quasi-judicial hearing this evening, and we'll move on to new business. Item number 1, and this is where you're up, Courtney, to do the Zoom, and this is discussion and possible action regarding the American Rescue Plan, reporting and compliance consulting engineer proposal. So they have James Moore representatives are joining us now via Zoom, and they have a presentation for us.
And we have Mr. Brendan McKittrick on the line.
Yeah, Courtney, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Courtney, are you doing all right?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Okay. Can the commission hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. So Courtney and I were trying to figure out if I could share my screen, and it looks like we're having a little bit of technical difficulties, but do you all happen to have my PowerPoint presentation in front of you?
Do y'all have his PowerPoint?
I don't have it with me, I mean, but I certainly studied it.
I looked at it, but I don't have it with me.
That's fine. And really the PowerPoint's just a high level, basically conversation that I had with Mayor Brenda as well as Courtney, just kind of talking through what the changes were with regards to ARPA and also kind of how we can help in that process. Before I kind of get into that, did want to let you all know I am Brenda McKittrick. I'm a director with James Moore. I'm out of our Gainesville office, about, I guess, 3 hours east of where you all are. And, you know, as you all probably know, with the original guidance that came out about 14 months ago, there was some requirements as to how those ARPA funds should be utilized. And really there was 4 categories or 4 buckets that those categories included. And those were, if you remember, lost revenue, public health and economic response, premium pay, and then the water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. And some of those early conversations that we were having with our clients, you know, specifically ones that, you know, were kind of concerned with what those categories, how restrictive they were. We kind of told them, you know, hey, if you've got concerns, go ahead and hold up on doing anything, because it was what they were calling the interim final ruling, which doesn't really make full sense to me. But, you know, we knew that there was a final ruling that was coming down the pipeline. And kind of from what we saw with the CARES Act money in the federal government, they loosened restrictions in that case. And that's what we thought was going to happen. So fast forward to January of this year, the final ruling came out, and within the final ruling, they did just that. They really loosened those restrictions, and included in that, under the lost revenue category, they included what's called the $10 million revenue or standard allowance. And what that was saying any of those ARPA dollars, basically up to $10 million, or basically the lesser of whatever you all received, which is 1.4 billion or 10 million. So the full amount could be utilized under the standard allowance. And that's really what they said was a presumption of revenue loss. So rather than going through a complicated formula, you could assume revenue loss up to that 1.4 million. What's nice about that is it does simplify the process and reporting requirements to the U.S. Treasury. You know, kind of under the original guidance, and I mentioned the 4 categories, there was, you know, requirements included as far as how it was reported and then how to deal with it on an audit perspective that was going to just honestly create more red tape. Under the standard allowance, it indicates that you can take any sort of basic government services as qualifying expenditures to utilize those ARPA funds. And the way the Treasury explains it, and what I think is easier to understand using the standard allowance, it's actually easier to understand what you're not allowed to use it for versus what you can use it for. Because a lot of our, you know, the early conversations we were having was, well, hey, you know, we want to use this money on infrastructure. We want to use it on premium pay, which you can definitely do that under the standard allowance. But you want to report it under the standard allowance. And again, the exclusions, you know, the things to think about that you can't spend it on is 1, you can't reduce taxable revenue. 2, you can't have excess pension contributions. 3, you can't pay down debt service. And 4, you can't create a rainy day fund. Outside of that, you can really spend those ARPA funds however you see fit. Now, I will say, you know, generally we're recommending, you know, those funds be used for more one-time type expenditures. You know, we've had some clients kind of talk through what they're thinking about doing, and you know, we've had a couple that have suggested, well, you know, we've thought about salaries and just being mindful that, you know, salaries aren't kind of a, you know, if there was an increase in salaries, that's not a one-time increase. Obviously, that's going to go on long after you spend through the ARPA funds. But, you know, really, part of what this is 1, you know, kind of letting you all know what's changed in the process. 2, making sure you do keep it simple and straightforward by utilizing the standard allowance, and also realizing that the standard allowance is a one-time election. The first reporting requirements are the end of this month, April 30th. And if you don't elect to take the standard allowance this month, you miss out on it. So, you know, definitely pushing that you all look at utilizing that standard allowance. Where we come in the service that we're offering has to do with really helping on the reporting and compliance side with the U.S. Treasury portal. They've had a little bit of a rough rollout with the portal. I guess that's probably not a surprise. But, you know, what we would do is we would get access to the portal, working with your staff, most likely Courtney, and we would report, you know, right now there's 3 documents that are required, and then there's a project and expenditure module. We would work with your staff with updating that information under the standard allowance. We would also help create an audit package, you know, to support your election of the standard allowance. And we also help with creating any sort of internal accounting policies or memos to really memorialize what we've done here with regards to the ARPA dollars. So with that, you know, as I mentioned, a lot of this has been kind of an education piece and kind of talking through that. We did get to talk to Mayor Brenda as well as Ms. Courtney through that process previously. But, you know, really what helps here is if you do have questions, you know, really opening it up to any questions you may have, you know, whether it be what we would do for the Carabell or, you know, with regards to the changes in the ARPA guidance.
And Courtney, did you speak with the commissioners about this?
I have talked to some of them.
Okay.
I know I've talked to 2 of them.
Okay. All right. Do we have questions to Mr. Kirkpatrick regarding this process? Okay. Mr. Kirkpatrick, this is Brenda. I have questions.
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And this question I put to Courtney, and she emailed it to you, and you said you still had you've submitted a question similar to it to the U.S. Treasury. I don't know if you've heard back, but So the filing has to be done by April the 30th to notify the U.S. Treasury that we may, I'll say may because we haven't voted on this yet, may want to take the standard allowance, which would be certainly not $10,000 for us. The total award for the city of Carabell is $1,412,000 and some change. So to take advantage of being able to spend that basically how we want, except for the 4 items or 3 items that you listed, 4 items. Does that money and then part of your filing that you talk about here is filing the project and expenditure report? What is that?
That is basically the module that, so when you log in, there's 2 modules in there. There's a module asking, hey, there's some required documentation, basically the agreement for the ARPA dollars, there's a civil rights agreement, and then the budget that you all submitted last year. And then the project and expenditure is really how are those dollars being utilized. So again, if you all were to report under one of those 4 categories, that's where you report how those dollars are being spent. And they've got a lot of different categories and subcategories to choose from. So, again, depending on which direction you all go, if you happen to not go the standard allowance route, there's additional requirements as to what projects they're being spent on. If you have any subrecipients, a bunch of information and detail you would have to include in there, really for the federal government to understand how those monies are being spent and to be in compliance with those final rulings, the regulations that they issued in January.
Okay, so in layman's terms, what I'm trying to ask is, does this board need to develop some type of an expenditure report on what they intend to utilize those funds for, to be filed by April whatever month it is, April the 30th?
So under the standard allowance, you do not have to have a plan, so to speak.
Uh-huh.
What we in the engagement letter, I mentioned there's 3 kind of things that it includes. It includes the reporting, it includes an audit package, and then there's an accounting policy and a memo. So a lot of our clients, what they have kind of discussed, and this is something we would do after the reporting deadline, but have discussed, hey, we really want the responsibility of these dollars to be at the commissioner council level, which makes sense. And really what that would do from a financial statement perspective is it would move those funds in what we call committed fund balance. And from there, it would be at your determination as to how those dollars are spent. And again, under the ARPA guidance, and specifically under the standard allowance, you've got a lot of flexibility on how those dollars are spent. Mm-hmm. But no, you don't need to have a plan in place as of April 30th to take credit for the standard allowance.
Okay, so then you quote your fee for the services. Did everyone see what the fee for the services?
I don't know if that got sent out.
Okay, it's, can I say it out loud? $5,900. But then you have additional services that are, if you make a presentation to this board remotely, then that's an additional fee of $750. If you do a project accounting and reporting, like a final report, that's $7,500, and then a project accounting and reporting, an interim report, they're $2,000 each. So what do you? I know this is your first time at this; it's everyone's first time. But what do you foresee? I mean, do you foresee us having to do interim reports if we want to submit a spending plan? That would be an interim report. Is that correct?
No, so Brenda, on the $5,900.
Yes, sir.
That covers all reporting requirements for the U.S. Treasury in this reporting period and subsequent reporting periods. What these elective add-on services, and so just so you all know, we have probably close to 30 clients we're working with on the ARPA reporting piece. We've only had one of those 30 that have asked us to do any of the additional reporting. And what that reporting really is if you all wanted, if you all wanted additional reporting in addition to what you all are already tracking, we could help with that. So we would create a deliverable, a report basically outlining, hey, these were the ARPA funds that were received, the 1.4 million. And this is how the ARPA funds were spent. So the $7,500, the final report, would really be after the fact, after all your ARPA dollars are spent down, and we could provide a report saying, hey, this is how you all spent the ARPA funds. This is how you impacted your community with those ARPA dollars. And then the interim would be just based on whatever determination you all would make, say you all wanted an annual type report saying, okay, where are we next year? How have we spent these ARPA dollars? We could do some sort of interim reporting, but those reports would really be specifically for the commission and for the community. But again, like I mentioned, most of our clients that we've engaged with have just indicated, hey, if that's something we wanted, we could either come back after the fact and engage James Moore, or we could even have staff prepare something as well to provide that transparency.
Okay, then we know with the traditional ARPA spending that only allows the 4 items, that there was a deadline. I believe that was 2026. You had to have your spending plan in place by 2024 and spend by. Is there a deadline to spend the standard allowance?
So the way the guidance is written for the standard allowance is that when we elect to take it in the April 30th, that election will recognize those expenses in this period. So essentially this April 30th, 2022 is going to recognize the full 1.4 million. So you don't need to worry about that reporting deadline in subsequent periods.
Did you understand that, Mr. Hartman? No, I didn't.
Yeah, so I guess in layman's terms, we're already going to meet the criteria in this reporting cycle, so we don't have to worry about any sort of later reporting deadlines. So the expenses that you all have already occurred, again, the way they explain it is it's a presumption of lost revenue. So it's assuming you all didn't have, up to $1.4 million of lost revenue to pick up the expenses you've already incurred. So those expenses from March 2021 through the end of March 2022, those revenue dollars from the ARPA money will cover those expenditures. So the expenditures you all have already incurred basically are covering those ARPA dollars. So as far as a reporting deadline, it's going to be met this reporting cycle.
No, go ahead, Mr.
Sorry.
Hartman.
So this is Dan Hartman, the city attorney. So the reporting, when you talk about the reporting requirement, when we elect the standard deduction and you submit the report, the required report, then we're done as far as reporting to the Treasury.
So I'd like to say yes, but currently the way the Treasury has it, and we're hoping they're going to update this, there's still technically reporting requirements for the next 2 years. They rolled this out very quick. So under the interim final ruling, they were anticipating municipalities for 2022, 2023, and 2024. And then they rolled out the standard allowance. They haven't, to our knowledge, updated those reporting requirements. So the $5,900 will include the reporting requirements for this period, which will basically cover the full 1.4 million. But then we'll also have to, currently we'll still have to report in 2023 and 2024. And that $5,900 engagement fee that was mentioned earlier, that covers that as well. So we would go in for that submission as well, but it would already be reported in 2022.
Okay, and just to be clear, obviously we'd follow the Department of Treasury guidance, and the future reports, what do you contemplate would be in those? Are we are we reporting in those on expenditure of the 1.4? But I understood you to say that the 1.4 is really as a standard deduction. I keep thinking of a standard deduction amount, is that we've already lost that amount, so we're just being recompensated that, and I understand that theory now, but what would you contemplate the future reports being in the following 2 years?
Just zero amounts.
Got it. Okay.
So, but is there a deadline that that this money has to be allocated and or spent?
So it'll
No,
be
it's already
No.
been
in
spent.
the
It's already been
Okay.
spent.
when we,
That's,
Okay,
what's
And
that?
reimbursed.
I don't want to say.
all right, so we're being reimbursed, says our city clerk,
In layman's
with the
terms.
standard term, with the standard allowance
Yep.
in layman's terms.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to ask, I see Mr. Sullivan, and I know he figures money really good, calculates in his brain, quicker than I do, for sure. So do you have any questions or concerns?
No, I pretty much understand the way it can.
Okay, all right. All right, so, okay.
I have
Commissioner
one
Miller.
question.
All right.
I mean, I understand what the gentleman's presenting to us.
Mhm.
The only question I didn't hear, maybe I missed, or only explanation, his fees, can they be taken out of this $1.4 million?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And the other question I have, if we agree to this and he encumbers a fee and we are turned down on this request, what is his fee gonna be?
Turned down from the U.S. Treasury.
Yes.
The
You've
Well,
already
if
got
it would-
700,000.
Yeah.
we've already got
We
it.
won't be turned
Yeah.
down.
We've already got
Yeah.
half the money.
Uh-huh.
We already have half of it.
Yeah.
But we don't have the other half.
But no one
Okay.
does. That will be allocated in another 12 months. But we have already set up an account they've already deposited $706,000 in there right now. It's $706,204.
Okay, one final question, Mayor, and I present this to the city administrator. Do you have a comment, a report, a recommendation? You probably understand this, you and the mayor, better than the rest of us. Do you have any comment on it?
No, what he's saying seems good. We get free money.
And
Well,
then-
I'm
They
all,
take care of all the
and-
reporting and all the
And then I can add
requirements.
to it, and then we
Right.
won't have to further report, but you can still create a budget out of this separate account of how the city wants to spend the money.
We can do that at a later
And
date.
then we'll track it
and I'll
through
be
a
the first.
budget process.
I'll be the first to jump on the wagon for free money. I'm sitting here smiling about it.
But then
However,
reporting
But-
I don't want
and
it to
they'll
cost
It's to
take
us
care of
reimburse
it.
us for
It's not-
losses.
It's
Right.
not,
Right.
it's part of
Right.
the American
That we've
Rescue
already
Plan.
paid.
Every city in the United States and every county in the United States and state is getting the money. And I'll mention to you behind the scenes what it's doing to our economy. I probably should, but we're getting it, so we need to get it and use it to the best we can, because the original way that they were presenting it, Courtney and I had talked about it from time to time, and there was nothing that we could use it for, because it was for disproportionately impacted households, population, do affordable housing facility, to put more broadband in. And basically, the only thing you could do, water and sewer projects, and that's the only thing that we could figure that we could do with the original way that had been presented to everyone. But now, Mr. Kirkpatrick explains that we can pretty much spend it and the counties can too, if they take the standard allowance, as we wish, other than to reduce tax revenues, which would be reduce the millage rate, make contributions to our pension fund, cannot service debt like pay off our city hall in advance, and can't use it as a rainy day fund, which would be like a contingency fund, and put it somewhere for contingency. So otherwise, we can use that as needed, and the money is there. Half the money's already in an account in the city of Carabell at Centennial, and the other half will be there in about 11 months. So I would suggest to move forward. This would be the most simple way. We wouldn't have to have meetings with a consultant, presenting every month and how we're going to, try to spend the money when we never had anyone with premium pay, or we don't run a hospital or a school or a health department or anything, so we really can't expend it on those items that were originally designed for.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of motion do we need for this?
Well, you would just motion to accept the, let me see what he's got, to accept the engagement proposal that presented by the James Moore for the ARPA,
Make a
American
motion.
Rescue Plan. And Mr. Hartman, you wanted to
Sorry,
say?
and no, proceed with that motion, and then I think we'd make a motion to do the standard
Yeah.
standard
Well,
deduction.
let's do that
one
first.
first, or
Yes.
either
Okay.
one.
Okay, so make a motion that we're going to
Accept the
use the standard
deduction.
allowance for the American Rescue Plan.
Yes.
Okay.
Got that, Keisha?
Are we putting that all in one motion?
No, two motions.
Okay, so the first motion was to approve the proposal.
The standard
Allowance.
allowance.
So we want to do that one first.
For the American Rescue Plan.
ARPA.
I'll second it.
Okay, and that motion is by Commissioner Brown, second by Commissioner Millender. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and that motion carries. Okay, and then we would want to entertain a motion to accept the proposal by the James Moore representatives to manage the reporting and compliance required by the U.S. Treasury to utilize the standard allowance.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, excuse me.
Second.
I'll have to look that up somewhere. Go back and listen to it. So that motion was made by Commissioner Allen, second by Commissioner Mathis. Is there any further discussion? Okay, so, what we understand here is that this is going to help staff too, because either way, it's complicated, and we knew when this was coming to us, we knew we were gonna have to have a consultant one way or the other. And so this will help staff. It's like similar to having Fox Enterprise help us with our CDBG grants. So all in favor of this motion to accept their proposal?
Aye.
Okay, and any opposed? And that motion carries. Okay. Okay, Mr. Kirkpatrick, you heard that?
Yep, that's great news. I really appreciate the opportunity to work with you all, and Courtney, I'll be in touch.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Have a good night.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, then we'll move to item 2, approve or disapprove the HR committee recommendation for office assistant job description. And so you want to talk to us about that, Courtney? I'll toss it over
Or
to
you
you.
want to
or-
give it to Mr. Magnan or Mr. Tom if he wants to speak?
Okay, and while he's coming to the podium, I'll just say that we have an HR committee who has helped us a lot through the years since 2018. And Mr. Tom Magnan has a good HR experience, expertise, background, and he's been sitting as the public representative on this committee and serves as chair and secretary. So, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
What you have I think, is the minutes from the last meeting, which was the second meeting of the committee concerning this office assistant job position, which is a newly created position. As I said last time, we made some recommendations that the job be 20 to 30 hours per week, which was one of the things that we wanted to do, were asked to do. After the first meeting, after a lot of ideas were thrown out about what the job description should include, Courtney wrote the job description. At that point, was delivered to emailed to each member of the committee for their perusal, and comments were made back to Courtney. Courtney had the final draft ready at the March 23rd meeting, and there were a few minor adjustments which Courtney made, and again emailed the final draft to all committee members, and that's what you have today, is that job description. The other thing that we were asked to do is to set a salary or an hourly rate for the person who would be in that position, and the committee talked about this quite a bit. And I must say, Courtney and the rest of the department heads, Charlie and Dustin and the chief, all very knowledgeable, all very committed to this, and the amount that we came up with was between $13 and $13.50 per hour for this position. So, and basically we feel that that's the point where we are in right now, is just to get your approval or your comments about the work that was done by the committee. So.
Okay, well, we thank you very much. I have a few questions or comments, and one of them, I just want to recognize that there were 21 duties outlined. There was a couple of more items, but that was just pretty much general stuff: report to work on time, or act in a tactful, friendly manner. But basically 21 duties, and 10 of those were directly related to the water and sewer department. Is that pretty much what I recognized?
We do figure that most of this job a lot of it would be water and sewer department, but that there would be downtimes in the water and sewer department that this person could help other departments while they're here. The majority of the work would be out of the water and sewer.
Okay.
But with the water and sewer, they do things, it's not busy every day, but they, at the beginning of the month, and they're sending out bills, and at the middle of the month when they're doing cutoffs, but there's times in between where it's not as busy up there, and that they may could move over and help someone else or do some filing or data entry.
Right, and everyone knows, I've said it many times, I've recognized it over the years and year after year, that there needed to be some type of help there, assistance, whenever the full-time clerk is off. So, but we want to be careful not to encroach too much on the full-time clerk's salary, and I know y'all I'm sure, had a good discussion on that. So what would the person would be on probation for, is it 6 months or
It's 1 year.
1 year. And it used to be 6 months.
It did.
Okay. What would that proposed probation increase be? Do we know, or?
We discussed 75 cents.
Uh-huh. I asked that because that would help us decide what the rate would be. Then, so all the work's going to be performed inside the city hall. There's not going to be any boots on the ground, no code enforcement or.
No, the way that they would help with code enforcement is that they would, if we needed them to, that they could input the data in the computer, which would free Keisha up to go out in the field. But this would be a person that would be in City Hall. It would not be any.
Right, and nothing with the boat ramps that we had discussed previously. In fact, you've got a part-time attendant hired for oversight at the boat ramp. what does administrative staff recommend for payroll funding sources?
That's not one of the things that the committee was asked to,
Okay, and
to talk
I was
about,
pretty
yeah.
much, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I had I was looking at Courtney
Oh,
and
okay.
directed that to her. I'm sorry. Excuse me, Mr.
Well, we're
Mackey.
looking at funding out of the water and sewer department and out of the general, each department, but as far, we would have to see how much time they're actually putting into what department.
Before you can,
Well, I mean, I couldn't tell you if it's 50% water and
Uh-huh.
10% out of the building department, or how, we discussed how would they help the police department and the streets and roads, and that would just be by answering the phones or taking, when people walk in and they're, having to say, let me call the police officer for you, and so we don't have an idea of how that needs to be split,
okay.
because we don't know how much time they're gonna spend doing.
And you recommend, or you suggest that it would be 20 to 30 hours a week?
Yes, and that was our suggestion, because if Crystal was out, they may need to come in an extra, couple more hours, or if somebody went on vacation, so that would just, not, it would probably be a 20-hour a week, but if we needed them more, we could use them more.
So, and now I can calculate this, Mr. Sullivan, 25 hours a week at $13 an hour is $325, and 50 weeks, because the person may want some time off, is $16,250, and then we need to total loaded labor costs with the FICA and workman's comp. So somewhere 17 or 18,000. Certainly half the duties we know right now are directly related to water and sewer, so we know that 50% would come from water and sewer. What they would have to do this year, if you're looking at hiring in this budget year right now, would be to hold back on one of their small capital projects to fund that. On the general fund side, I'm not real sure. Maybe we could not do fireworks. So.
I believe there is money in the building department.
Okay.
Money.
They are ahead on, you're ahead on the income, revenues in the building department.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, we
We have
really
been busy.
anticipate that this person is not gonna provide much service to the police department or the streets and roads, other than just being a receptionist or.
Do you want, first of all, what do the commission, do y'all have anything to ask or say? Do we want to, does administrative staff recommend to hire someone, advertise right now? Do we want to advertise in-house?
I would like to make a motion that we advertise publicly, which would also include in-house.
Let me just ask Mr. Hartman, do we need to advertise in-house first? Or is there, both of y'all, let us know.
That has been our standard practice here recently. We do it for a week in-house, just to give anybody the opportunity. But the first, well, if somebody wanted to go to part-time, it's not very likely, but
I don't think.
we try to keep them the same, the way we hire, keep it all the same.
Follow our regular practice is fine.
And basically, we just post it on the door of the lobby.
And then after a week, you do in the paper.
Mhm.
I
For 2
think, I
weeks.
think we need to decide a salary.
Do we not want to go with the 13 to 13.50, depending on experience?
I don't know, I don't want to encroach on the clerk too much. The one that has
Not
the
me, though.
experience.
Well, hers is
I think she
more,
was at
and-
1390,
Uh-huh.
And
and
she's going to be getting the raises that we set
Mhm.
forth when we did the budget, but this person wouldn't be getting one for a year,
Mhm.
so.
So we would hire now, this person would get their 75 cents in a year, and then this person would get $1 if we continue with that, what was presented, would get $1 in next September of 2023. 2023, 2024.
Not this year, though. Which we'd put.
So by
this-
that time, at that point, it might be the person might encroach a little bit.
Well, Crystal would be getting raises at the same
Yeah.
time as
Mhm.
well.
So, but I'll leave that, whatever y'all want to do, decide. You might advertise 13 to 13.50 or an hour commensurate with
And we
experience.
also did talk about, this person's a part-time employee that is not getting benefits.
Right.
So where we have an employee that may be making close to the same amount of money, that employee is getting benefits, and they're getting
Good benefit.
good benefits, where this employee would not be
Yeah.
getting any of that.
Mhm. So, we got a salary range, or no?
Well, we suggested 13 to 13.50. but
Okay,
that's
well,
up
leave it
to-
like that and do it, I would then say do it commensurate with experience.
That's what we had discussed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It would still become before the board
Yes,
to-
it would.
for the hire.
So,
Motion to advertise in-house and then a week later publicly.
okay. For the office assistant
For
position?
the office assistant position.
Okay. All right, then we have that motion by Commissioner Brown. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, a second by Commissioner Mathis. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and that motion carries. All right.
Okay.
That's it, and there's no old business, and then do we have public comment?
We do.
Okay, we have public comment, Ms. Tamara. Tamara Allen. And thank you, Mr. Magnan.
There is just something in particular I wanted to be sure you knew about. As a result of all the damage that was done in the rural counties during Michael, there have been a lot of rural counties that have applied for historic preservation funds, but there are a lot of them that don't know what to do with any of that. So the state's come up with an approach of doing a survey of each of these rural counties to determine any kind of historic preservation needs that they might have, like, do they have an important building, do they have an important battleground, do they have a whatever. And so they have contracted with different firms, and the firm that got Franklin County is a firm that's called Terracon. And I received a call from Terracon this past week, and they're interested in holding their meeting in Carabell for the entire Franklin County. They were thinking of holding it at the Sea Quarters Marina upstairs. They wanted an informal atmosphere, because we had suggested they might use your building here, this room. So anyway, they're tentatively scheduled for Wednesday, May the 4th, which is the day before your next meeting, at 6 p.m. And they had to get a final approval on that from the state, but that's tentative. And so they'll be inviting you all. They're inviting all the county commissioners, the city commissioners for Appalachia, the city commissioners here, and other folks. And what they ask us to do is to help them figure out who are the people that were not on the obvious list of people to invite, but that might be interested, like historical societies and individuals who might just have some interest in it. And that's really all I know about it. There'll be further information coming to you, but since it's before your next meeting, I wanted to be sure you knew that. And then, so does anybody have any questions about that?
Will they be bringing more money?
What I'm hoping for is that they'll be allocating some more money maybe next year for
Okay.
more historic preservation.
Okay, that would be good.
But I can't
Good
say
answer.
that for sure. It sort of surprised me, the type of companies that were doing this in other counties have people that have historical and archaeological backgrounds. But this looks like online, like it's more of a engineering type company, big national company. They probably do it all, I would bet. I don't know, do you know them at all? No?
I've heard the name, but
Yeah. Well, the lady was in Jacksonville and she said she worked from home, so I don't know what to make about that. But anyway, so that's about that. And then the other thing I wanted to invite you to a birthday party. Sunday, May 1st, the History Museum is gonna hold a celebration, and we're going to celebrate the very first meeting that was ever held in the Justice Building in the Carabell new City Hall was held on May 2nd, 1938. And it was the first city commission meeting, and what is written up in the newspapers as being the finest city hall for a town of this size. And it was full of furniture all made of Mexican hardwood that was supposed to be beautiful. And they said it was state of the art for the time. And as we all know, Marvin Justice built it, and some years ago it got named after him. So we're gonna have our birthday celebration the day before, but when they had that first meeting, after the meeting was over, they pushed the chairs back and had a dance upstairs at City Hall. We're not gonna have a dance, but we are gonna honor the 30s, the 1930s, and so you don't have to be old, you don't have to be alive in the 30s to come to it, but we would love it if you would come help us celebrate.
What time?
That's a really good question. My memory is not that good on that answer, but I'm thinking at 2 o'clock. I know we want to give people time to go to church and be available, so I think it's at 2 o'clock.
Okay.
Anyway, that was can you imagine the first meeting of the city commission in their new building in 1938? That's pretty special. Anyway.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I wish we still had the furniture to go with it.
I know, I'd love to see the furniture.
Okay, do we have any other public comment? All right, there be nothing else. Do we have a motion to
Move
adjourn? All right.
Dang.
Excuse me?
What, 5 motions?
Hell, I wasn't ready to go.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Allen to adjourn. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I'm waiting on you.
Motion dies for lack of second?
I'll second it. Frank's
Okay.
quit.
Oh, we got it, okay.
I wasn't ready to leave.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay,
my
so,
God.
Sun's still up.
I know it. Commissioner Millender, second, Allen and Millender. And any further discussion? Okay,
That was
then.
good. Now.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And that motion carries. All right, good night, good meeting.